Hey everyone, Wanderbot here, and welcome to, I guess, a new series that I've been wanting to do for ages because it solves two problems for me. One, I get asked a lot of questions over the years on my YouTube channel, my Twitch channel, and by various fans all over the place. I just get asked a bunch of questions, and I always answer them, and then I get asked the same question again, you know, hour later, day later, month later, it doesn't really matter. And so I figured this would be kind of a fun little series for me to start answering some questions and then pointing to the videos instead of answering them repeatedly. Because, it'd be nice. And this way I can get all my thoughts out in video format so I don't have to think about them as much. Brain clearing, as you will. The other purpose of this is I want to do more artwork and I don't do nearly enough of it. And so by doing questions and art, I can get both out of the way and have some stuff to put up on Wanderbot Prime while I work on other bigger projects, because that's hard. Anywho, so, episode 1, where did you come up with the name Wanderbot? So, first and foremost, I don't know if you know anything about me, but I'm pretty terrible at coming up with, direct names for characters. Almost all of the names that I ever use in any of the media that I've ever made have either been random brain fart dumb names, like, Snad Hamwick, which is, I guess it's a combination of Snad, which is just the joke sand from Minecraft mods. I don't know which one specifically. And then Hamwick is actually, I guess it's also sourced from Sham Hamwich, which was a creature in Dragon Quest XI that I absolutely adored. It was just a cute little piglet with a big wizard's hat, or witch's hat, on the entire top of its body, and it was so adorable. And so that's where I come up with my names, but they're not cool, they're not very impressive. It's memorable, apparently. My Monster Crown video certainly showed that one off. People loved it, but it's not a cool name. And so when it comes to naming things, I'm not very good at it, and naming something that I was going to use for potentially years or even the rest of my life, I'd say it was a tall undertaking, but actually it was quite easy. This one was entirely my own. And Shells. So, when it came time to pick a name for this channel, I remember taking out a sketchbook. I have a supply of moleskins that I just keep on a bookshelf. If I just need to brainstorm, draw, or just have something to do when, I'm out and about, I just bring a moleskin with me. And I often don't do anything with them, but they're just great little brain organization tools, and I wish I had more time to work on them. But, the further I get away from college, the less I have the opportunity to do so, unless I'm on vacation. And even then, it's kind of hard to remember. But so I just opened it to a blank page, started sketching out some branding ideas. I think I might have actually drawn the OG Wanderbot portrait that I don't think is visible anywhere. Maybe I'll put it up at some point. But I think I drew the start for that, as well as the logo, which was just a big circle with 4 little circles around it. I kind of come up with that, but I didn't really have a good name. And so I was just kind of shopping around for a while and writing down a bunch of different, just a big word cloud of different ideas. Because it's important to see it on paper. You don't want to just be like, yeah, I'm going to be Snad Hamwick. And then you look at it for a while and it's like, that's stupid. Who knows if somebody wants to make Snad Hamwick the YouTube gaming channel, go for it. Good luck. Maybe it won't be so bad, but that's the kind of thing that would be a little tough to utilize 6-7 years down the line, up on national stage, 100,000 live viewers. Welcome, Snad Hamwick. It'd actually be a pretty great joke. I wouldn't do it, but if you owned that wouldn't be bad. Anywho, so I just had a word cloud, and I actually wrote down the names of my various inspirations. Back when I first started my channel, I used to watch a bunch of great YouTubers, Game Grumps, Northern Lion, Total Biscuit, Gassy Mexican, Sea Nanners, Jesse Cox. And one thing to note that I noticed almost immediately is every single one of them were 2-part names. Admittedly, one of them was just the guy's real name for Jesse Cox, but every single other one of them was Northern Lion, Game Grumps, Total Biscuit. And so I very quickly separated my word cloud out into 2 groups. The prefix, suffix, I'm sure there's a better way of describing word structure, but it's been a long time since I've taken an English class, so bear with me. But I knew I had to have a two-part name, and because my channel is originally supposed to be for both Shell and myself, and it still is, you know, we still work together, we still do a lot of co-commentary videos, it's just, I am Wanderbot and she is Shell. So originally, the true plan was we were going to be the Wanderbots, and it was just going to be the plural term for the both of us. And so it was pretty easy to sit down and actually have two parts to think about, because it's kind of hard to come up with a quick, catchy one-part name, especially because so many of them are taken already. So you have to kind of, you know, make sure that you're coming up with something unique and interesting. And so the first half, I just put aside. Whatever it was going to be, that was going to be the first thing everybody heard, and therefore it was the most important, so I would think about that later. The latter half, bots, super easy. I am a massive fan of robots, mecha, cyborgs, so on and so forth. Just high-tech machinery is really cool to me. I draw a lot of it. I'm not actually that good at it, but if you go back and look at a lot of like my favorites lists on art sites and Twitter and whatnot, it's like D&D characters, monsters, and mecha. And so, yeah, bots, just absolute no-brainer. Especially because I actually had a very short-lived webcomic years ago. It's not online anywhere. The website is long defunct, and I don't think anybody would be able to find it, but it was just called Sad Robot. And it was just a robot that was wandering like a lonely, broken world with not a whole lot in it and just looking at things. It was kind of an excuse for me to do landscape paintings because I was decent at them in art school. I just figured it would be kind of a fun way to work on stuff and have like a little character adventuring around them. And I only made a couple pages for it, but I was dating Shell. I was talking to Shell at the time. We weren't dating yet, but she absolutely adored the design and the overall feel and the character. And so while I was sitting there looking at my sketchbook trying to come up with names, because I knew it was going to be bots, or, you know, bot, then plural, bots. And so I was just sitting there staring at the word cloud, and Shell just kind of turns around, because we were living in a 2-bedroom apartment at the time, but we always just stayed in 1 bedroom. And she just turns around in her chair, and it's like, what about Wander? As just a less mopey version of the same robot character. And it was brilliant. It was perfect. And beyond that, it already fit like a glove. Exploring new places is one of my absolute favorite things to do in real life and in video games, so it just was the perfect choice. And yeah, in the end, I actually had to make it plural anyway, just out of necessity, because it turned out there was a channel on YouTube that was just Wanderbot that has like one video of some soccer animation. I don't know. I've never actually watched it. Maybe I should, but it was an absolute nothing. And so, you know, the name was already taken. So I just, all right, bots it is. And we started off with a bunch of, you know, co-commentary series, Banjo-Tooie, Kingdoms of Amalur, a couple other things. Eventually I started branching out into my own solo works and eventually adopted Wander and Wanderbot is my own name, largely because that's what other people would call me. I wasn't terribly comfortable with other people calling me by my real name, and I'm still not, just mainly because I do not want the possibility of somebody finding my house and coming to visit me. I could be a friendly dude, but if I don't want the possibility of somebody ringing my doorbell and trying to, like, come into my house and hang out, because that would be way too weird and super uncomfortable and really creepy. And so, yeah, I just kind of adopted the name Wander for myself as my own branding. And so we are still the Wanderbots, but I am Wanderbot, if that makes sense. And honestly, I'm fine with that. I actually really like the name Wander. I don't regret picking this name. This is one of those things that, you know, I've thought about over the years that, you know, my parents named me. Do I like my real name? I don't know. I'm okay with it. But I really like this chosen username for myself. 7 years later, I'm honestly more comfortable being called Wander than my real name. The only real regret I have for it is apparently a lot of people misread Wanderbot as Wonderbot, which really isn't that big of a deal. It's just mainly, one, I am Wanderbot with a very solid A. And it means that anybody that comes by and calls me Wanderbot is very clearly somebody that actually has not been around for very long, which is kind of a nice indicator. Every once in a while I get an email from someone being like, hey, Wanderbot, check out our game. And it's like clearly just a mobile cash grab kind of game. And I'm like, no, thank you. So it's an easy filter. I just check to see if they bothered to get the name right when sending me an email. And historically, no one that has ever called me Wanderbot on a professional level has ever had anything like important to send me, which is, I don't know, it's a nice filter. And I don't really begrudge fans for getting it wrong, especially if they're new. It actually gets a bit of a chuckle out of me when somebody's been around for a month and they still haven't figured it out. The main true issue that I have with it is Wanderbot just sounds so cheesy. And I get it. I'm already kind of a cheesy guy for a lot of reasons. But I just, it evokes an image of spandex, and I don't really like spandex. I don't know. Anyway, I also ran into a few issues where people thought I was a bot script, or a bot or a script. If you were on Twitch, there's Nightbot, which is probably the most prolific bot on the platform. And it actually took a while for a number of people that I know and interact with to this day to realize that I was a real person as opposed to just a script. So specifically, my friends over at Stumped thought I was just a bot that would raid occasionally with some nebulous cloud of fans, and I thought that was the funniest thing ever. And it doesn't seem to have caused any, had any detrimental effects, so I don't really regret that little bit, but it's kind of a fun little handicap here and there. And yeah, otherwise, it's a great username, and has lent itself incredibly well to branding. I mean, the Wanderbot character has been relatively immutable for the last 7 years. Obviously, a number of the things below the head have gotten switched around a lot, but the overall helmet design and such, and the colors have just been the exact same start to finish. I don't feel like I need to rebrand because I'm unsatisfied with myself, my artwork, or my name. And that's been real nice. So, one last little segment that I'm going to do, probably as part of all of these questions and art videos, if it's relevant, is actually a little bit of advice, just because I'm an advice-given kind of guy, and I've actually picked up a lot of experience over the years, and so I figure, some people might actually watch this video to try and come up with an idea for their own, username, be it for just kind of anything, just casual usage, or if you want to make a professional grade YouTube channel. So bear with me, this is all advice from my own experience, so take it with a grain of salt. I talked earlier about two-part names and so on and so forth, and there are absolutely exceptions to everything I say. I know there are people with their real name as part of their channel, or just a one-word. Let's take a vac, for example. I don't know what a vac means. I don't know where he got it from. But that is a great and unique username that no one will ever come close to sharing, and it works great for him. But anyway, as far as my own personal experience, first and foremost, rule number one, keep it simple. You do not want something that is a mouthful, hard to say, or has to be shortened in some way. The simpler and catchier your name is, the more likely people are going to remember it. Whereas if you're like, Furberg the Weasel Gaming YouTube, that's too much. Just be Furberg. It's a terrible name. I know. But still, the only relevant part was the first part. Everything else, it can either be the branding or just left out entirely because it's implicit. You don't have to worry about it. The other thing, make sure you do not pick something that is similar to another creator. I've worked with certain people in the past who were named after a thing, and there were 3 other creators with the exact same name. And so whenever I talked about them, having interacted with them, I'd have to clarify exactly who it was. And that's inconvenient. More so, you'd never want to compete with another person for search results. If you are serious about becoming a YouTuber or a Twitch streamer, you don't want to have to fight for somebody that's already there. For example, let's go with the easy brain option. If you wanted to go with Wanderbot Gaming on YouTube, one, don't you dare. It's not going to work out for you. But two, you're going to have to fight with me to be Wanderbot Gaming on YouTube or Twitch. And I know this is going to sound egotistical, but that is a tall mountain to have to climb, and it's already hard enough to become a content creator in, you know, the modern market. It's already, everything it was saturated as hell 7 years ago, and it's even worse now. And so the more handicaps that you apply to yourself, the harder it's going to be. So you want to make sure that if you Google your potential username, no one else is there, because that means when you start creating content, you are going to be the only thing that pops up, and you never have to worry about someone getting confused, lost, finding somebody else, or your own search results just getting pushed down because somebody is bigger than you. Also, make sure it will be a name that'll work 5 to 10 years after you start. You don't want to be Furberg Gaming 2020. I mean, you could be, but 5 years from now, you're going to look kind of silly. Or, you know, maybe 2020 was a really important year for you for some reason. I hope not. This is a terrible year. But you want to make sure that your name is timeless and applicable years later. Same thing with more professional grade names. You want to have a name that is going to sound good, once again, on a stage in front of 100,000 people. You don't know where you're going to end up. And so the more professional and original and unique sounding your name is, the less handicaps you're going to have, and the better you're going to feel about your name if you do end up in a setting where people are using it. There's a reason why, you know, I use Wanderbot as a professional grade thing, as opposed to like one of my just random throwaway accounts years ago was like Napping Bear, and I'm sure Napping Bear is fine, but well, actually, maybe Napping Bear isn't terrible at all, but it doesn't really point to me, and it's kind of an okay name. But I'm sure. Let's go with top Call of Duty. Like, you could call yourself that, but especially if you stop doing Call of Duty, no one's going to take you seriously compared to if you had a much more unique and memorable name. And you also just truly have to make sure that you future-proof this name for your own benefit, because there's a possibility that you are going to outgrow whatever your first name that you come out with is. And so the more timeless and the more personal that name is going to be, the less you're going to regret it, and the less likely you're going to have to throw everything out the window and rebrand, because you really never want to do that. It's terrible for search engine optimization. It's terrible for getting usernames straight. Who knows if somebody else has taken the one that you want? And if you have a fan base, they're going to get confused no matter what. Also, on the topic of keeping out like 2020, keep out year names, numbers if you can, gaming, tube, YouTube, Twitch. Every single one of those things is redundant. So if you can come up with a name that does not involve any of those bits, it's going to be more memorable, it's going to be easier for people to type in, and it is just generally going to look better. Obviously, you can rise above. I've seen plenty of creators with kind of dumb original usernames just either own it or just kind of ignore it for a while until they can rebrand it at a later date when it doesn't matter. But the less of those little things that you have included, the less it's going to hold you back. And I know it may be tempting to have like Furberg Gaming or Furberg YouTube, because if somebody sees, you know, I don't know where I came up with Furberg, and I'm regretting it already, and I've only been using it for a couple of minutes, but I know it's kind of tempting to just be out and about and have like Furberg YouTube while playing Fall Guys, and somebody might see that Furberg YouTube is winning and they'll go check him out, but that's not the case. At best, you'll get stream snipers, and at worst, you'll get either nothing or laughed at. And you really don't want either of those. Just own who you are, and don't try and give yourself a imaginary leg up in that manner, because it honestly doesn't work. Also, and honestly, finally, and maybe even most importantly from my perspective, pick a name that evokes a persona. Most of the successful creators I know have created a really unique version of themselves, or an avatar for people to latch onto. Easy examples that I can think of, Game Grumps had those cute little chibi heads. Markiplier and Jacksepticeye, admittedly it's mostly just their faces, but with bright dyed hair and, you know, just they're really attractive looking guys, so that helps. Who else are really good for branding? I mean, Avac's got the Red Dragon. My buddy Retromation. obviously it's his face, but he always has those blue glasses no matter what. And even just basic small stuff like that helps, but if your name leads into that imagery, it's going to make a much better word-image association for other people to latch onto and remember. That's just basic kind of graphic and branding design, but I'd say it's very important. And probably the most important thing, because you want people to remember you if you're trying to create this username, hopefully. And if you're just picking a username for, you know, your own purposes while you're just off playing games on your own and you don't actually care about anyone finding you after the fact, then throw all these rules out the window because they don't matter. But if you do want to create a YouTube channel or a Twitch channel, try and keep some of these in mind. But remember, if you got to break the rules and it's important for you to do so, do so. So, with that is where I came up with the name Wanderbot, and why I'm still happy with it years after. Plus, a little bit of advice for everybody else. So, I think that's it. I don't really have too much more to say on the topic. Maybe I'll revisit if people keep asking more stuff in relation to this, but I've got other topics to talk about, and I don't want to go on too long. So, I hope you guys enjoyed this. This is actually really fun for me, just because I talk about this not infrequently when I am recording my gaming videos, but it is very nice to actually get all my thoughts out with minimal distractions. Because normally, you know, I'm bouncing from topic to topic, distracted by gameplay and so on and so forth. And this way I can always just point to this video as where I came up with the name Wanderbot. And it's actually kind of freeing. So, like I said, hope you guys enjoyed this as much as I did. I want to experiment a little bit more with this format. And honestly, I want to keep surfacing more stuff onto Wanderbot Prime, just so that I'm not just purely the guy that plays video games on YouTube and Twitch. It'd be nice to have a little bit more content in my portfolio beyond just gaming, even though, you know, this one's just basic back-end stuff, but sometimes that's okay. So if you guys liked this little experiment, leave me a like, helps more than you know, and if you want to see more, please let me know. And if you have any questions, please let me know in the comments below. Admittedly, I'm probably going to have a cutoff if I get too much, but eventually what I'd like to do is a system where channel members specifically just send me weekly or monthly questions that I answer, you know, 3 of them per month, 4 of them per month, 2 of them per month. It really also depends on how much artwork I'm able to create, but hopefully this inspires me to make a lot more. Also, a quick final thing, this thumbnail was created for my Rogue Legacy 2 series. It should be pretty obvious, but it was done over the course of 2 hours in Adobe Photoshop on my Cintiq. For anybody wondering, at some point I'll do an art guide video on how I do this, but I hope you guys enjoyed that as a little bit of background imagery while we did this. So, I guess with that, thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.